Okay, we have two basic stoichiometry problems here. First question asks, given 0.2 moles of ammonium sulfate, what is the mass of ammonium sulfate? So the first step is what we need to do is we need to determine the chemical formula of ammonium sulfate, which is basically ammonium sulfate. However, we need to put a subscript because ammonium has a charge of +1 and sulfate has a charge of -2. So in order to balance out the charges, we need a subscript of 2 to balance it out to make it +2. So +2 and -2 gives us a neutral charge. So now, after that, on the previous video, we determined how to determine the molar mass of ammonium sulfate, which was 132.17 grams over moles of ammonium sulfate. So now what we got to do is there's two ways to approach this. One way is we can use a formula where the molar mass, which stands for capital M, is equal to the mass, which is the small case m, over the moles, which is small case n. And this is usually a very easy way to determine either the molar mass, or moles, but when you get into higher levels of chemistry, you will stop using these formulas and use more of stoichiometry. So I'm going to solve it both ways. So first of all, the question asks to determine the mass of ammonium sulfate given 0.200 moles of ammonium sulfate. So we're given the moles, which is N. We know the molar mass, which is 132.17 grams over moles. So what they're asking us to do is determine the mass of it. So using this formula, we're going to solve for M. So to get rid of the N, we're going to multiply both sides by N. N. It cancels out. Therefore, M, small case m, is equal to small case n multiplied by M. And now we'll just do the substitution. So that'll be 0.20 moles multiplied by 132.17 grams over moles. And if we plug that into the calculator, that gives us 26.4 grams of ammonium sulfate. Now the other step may seem very similar, but the reason why I like it is you don't really need a formula. So what we do is we're always starting with a given value, which is 0.2 moles. So 0.200 moles of ammonium sulfate, and we multiply it by, remember our molar mass is grams over moles, right? And we want to cancel out the moles, so we know the moles has to be in the denominator and the grams must be in the numerator. So we write 132.17 grams over moles of ammonium sulfate, and see the moles cancels out, and we multiply that out, and that will give us also 26.4 the unit of grams of ammonium sulfate. Okay, now so that's how you determine using both ways, and I'll just, for this exercise, I think I'll choose to, actually, you know what, I'll use both ways. So for the next question, and I'll write it in red. So for the second part of this question, it says that given 2 grams of ammonium sulfate, which we already determined the molar mass, what is the moles of ammonium sulfate? So let's write everything down. So we know that capital M is equal to small m over N. And on this question, we're given the mass, which is 2.00 grams. We know that capital M is equal to 132.17 grams over moles. And we're asked to determine the small n. So first, let's do some algebra. Let's first multiply both sides by small n. So that gives us n times big M is equal to small m. And divide both sides by capital M so we can solve for n. So n is equal to m over m. And m stands for mass, which is 2.00 grams. And capital M stands for molar mass, 132.17 grams over moles. We plug that into the calculator, that gives us 0.0151 moles of ammonium sulfate. And again, we'll do it the other way. We always start with a given value of 2.00 grams of ammonium NH4 sulfate, and we multiply, however, this times by the inverse of the molar mass. And I can explain it as we go because we write 132.17 grams over moles. The reason why it's inverse because we want to cancel out the unit of grams and have the desired unit on the numerator. So that'll also give us, which is 0.0151 moles of ammonium sulfate.